Hey guys, today we are in Genesis chapter 4, the story of Cain and Abel. There are some golden nuggets dropped here and there throughout the story. There's a few things that I ask from you. Pay attention to the wording in the story. And also examine yourself and see where your attitude is towards giving and admitting to your mistakes. All right, I'm going to read the first couple of verses and then I got a really cool context to add to it. Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help, I have produced a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd and Cain cultivated the ground. He was a farmer. Now, why is it so important to stop here? Well, I want to point out the fact that Abel has a job and Cain has a job. In the context in my Bible, it says, no longer was everything provided for Adam and Eve as it had been in the Garden of Eden, where their daily task had been refreshing and delightful. Now they had to struggle against the elements in order to provide food, clothing, and shelter for themselves and their family. Cain became a farmer while Abel was a shepherd. So before the fall of Adam and Eve had only a couple of jobs, really, and that was to guard the garden and to have dominion over it, to name the creatures and the plants. And when they fell, a lot of things changed. So this is why this is an important part of the story, and we'll come back to it. All right, verses 3 through 4. When it was time for harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain angry, and he looked dejected. Okay, this is where we got to examine ourselves and examine the heart of Cain. Now, the Bible doesn't say why God did not accept Cain's gift, but I think it's kind of obvious. Perhaps Cain's attitude was improper, or perhaps his offering was not up to God's standards. Proverbs 21:27 says the sacrifice of an evil person is detestable, especially if it is offered with wrong motives. God evaluates both our motives and the quality of what we offer him. When we give to God and others, we should have joyful hearts because of what we are able to give. Check that out, what we are able to give. Thought you'd like that. We should not worry about how much we are giving up, for all things are God's in the first place. Instead, we should joyfully give to God our best in time, money, possessions, and talents. Now, does it sound like Cain gave God his best? No. He only gave God some of his best. Verses 6 through 7. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master." Now that is a good nugget for all of us, and we can apply that today still. In order for Cain to subdue his sin that was crouching at the door, he would have to give up his jealous anger so that sin would not find a foothold in his life. Sin is still crouching at the door for all of us today. Just like Cain, we will be victims of sin if we do not resist it and master our sinful desires. But we cannot master sin in our own strength. Instead, we must turn to God to receive faith for ourselves and turn to other believers to receive encouragement and strength. The Holy Spirit will help us master sin. This is a lifelong battle that will not be over until we are face to face with Christ. How do you react when someone suggests that you've done something wrong? Do you move in to correct it or deny that you need to correct it? After Cain's sacrifice was rejected, God gave him the chance to right his wrong and try again. God even encouraged him to do this, but Cain refused, and the rest of his life is a startling example of what happens to those who refuse to admit their mistakes. So the next time someone suggests you are wrong, take an honest look at yourself and choose God's way instead of Cain's. And Cain's way, verses 8 through 15, this is what Cain decided to do. One day Cain suggested to his brother, "Hey, let's go out into the fields." And while they were in the fields, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him out of pure jealousy. God asked Cain where Abel was, And Cain said, I don't know. I'm not his keeper. But God could hear Abel's blood crying from the ground. And he cursed Cain from the ground, the same ground that swallowed up his brother's blood, and told him that no good crops would ever grow for him again, and he would be a homeless wanderer the rest of his life. When we don't admit our mistakes and harbor it inside, it gives birth to sin, and then sin gives birth to death. If Cain would have admitted his mistakes and went back and done it right and gave God his best, none of this would have happened. But this is a good example of what happens to us if we don't admit our mistakes. And if we don't give God our best, it gives birth to sin, jealousy, hatred, anger. And human anger does not produce the righteousness of God. Cain was severely punished, but God didn't kill Cain. He left him alive. Cain could not bear the punishment that God had given him and said, anybody who finds me wandering will kill me. But the Lord replied, no, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. So Cain left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Now that expression, the sevenfold punishment, means that the person's punishment would be complete, thorough, and much worse than that received of Cain. See, I told you it was so good. Cain was severely punished for the murder of his brother. God judges all sin and punishes appropriately, not out of vengeance, but because he desires to correct us and restore us our fellowship with him. When you're corrected, don't resent it. Instead, renew your fellowship with God. Now back to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve had sinned in the garden. They might not have thought that their sin was very big or bad at all, but notice how quickly their sinful nature developed in their children. Simple disobedience quickly degenerated into outright murder. Adam and Eve acted only against God, but Cain acted against both God and another person. A small sin has a way of growing out of control, snowballing out of control. Let God help you with your little sins before they turn into big snowballing tragedies.